Hello, SpongicX's here, and today I wanted to make a list of what I consider to be the top 15 worst levels in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, my opinion may differ from a lot of others, so if you disagree with this list, that's fine. You know, everyone has what they like and everyone has what they dislike for their own reasons, so I just wanted to make this list for fun. Anyways, let's start off with number 15. I'm probably going to get some controversy for this, but number 15 is Midgar, the Final Fantasy VII stage. Now, I really wanted to like this stage because, Final Fantasy VII has such an interesting steampunk setting, and the stage is just such wasted potential. It's just a recycled, design of the Battlefield stage with a different background. Now, I put it pretty low on the list because as underwhelming as it is, at least it has these cool little summon gimmicks that occur every once in a while. That's like the only redeemable part of the stage. But for a stage to represent Final Fantasy VII, I was really expecting a lot better than this. Not to mention, seriously, only 2 music tracks in this stage? That is very low for a Super Smash Bros. Stage. Almost every stage in this game has at least like 10 different song tracks. So Square Enix was only cheap enough to give them 2 for this, and they all sound very low quality, PS1 sounding music. They couldn't have at least remixed it or given us a sample of what's to hear in the remake. I don't know. I mean, it's not a terrible stage, but it's far from the best either. Number 14, New Donk City. Now, I'm probably going to get some controversy for this one as well. Now, while New Donk City was a fun stage in Super Mario Odyssey, I just feel like it makes a very boring stage in Super Smash Bros. It's just another city level. We've already had plenty of city levels, and honestly, a lot of the other ones just look a lot better. We have, Fourside from Earthbound, that's a memorable stage from Melee. We have Lumio City from Pokemon X and Y, which was in the 3DS version of Super Smash Bros. So, I really just don't see the point of this stage. It's just another one of those stages that frequently interrupts with annoying floating platforms that take you from one area to another, except it just takes you to look, more buildings that look the same. It's just not a very exciting level. Now, I put it low on the list because although the level gets tiring, at least it has a kick-ass soundtrack that came with it. But I feel like for a stage that should have represented Super Mario Odyssey, I just feel like there were more worthy stages to choose from. So, yeah, I'm not too excited about what they picked here. Number 13, Battlefield. Now, I really do think that this just feels like a very pointless level in this game, at least. Because, not only because I really just think the design of the stage is just too generic. It's just a floating platform with 3 little mini platforms floating out of nowhere. But the problem is that because this game allows you to turn every stage into a Battlefield format, it just makes the stage feel so pointless. Especially since we have a much better stage, a better clone of this stage called Big Battlefield, which is just a more open version of this, and that's like the only Battlefield stage that actually stands out, because it's a big one, of course. But that being said, though, like the scenery in the background is still very nice, though, but it still feels like a recycling of the same kind of design they've used for Battlefield ever since Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I mean, the first 2 Super Smash Bros. Games, they had like a unique kind of like sci-fi style to it, and so ever since Brawl, though, they just decided to use like this weird I don't know what you'd call it, some kind of ancient civilization background. And it's just kind of like a theme that's been used a lot throughout this game through many different themes, whether it's, like Zelda, Kid Icarus, or just a bunch of these RPG-based series. So, I don't know. I don't hate this stage, but, what also makes the stage feel pointless is, like I mentioned, how you can turn every stage into a Battlefield format. So, it makes it feel pointless when you can play a Battlefield version of Battlefield. It's literally the same stage, no changes. So, yeah, I'm just personally sick of Battlefield. I think it's a theme of stages that gets recycled way too much, and you'll see more examples of what I'm talking about as this list goes on. Anyways, on to the next one. Number 12, Mario Circuit. Now, this was a pretty fun stage back in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but I feel this stage just feels a little pointless in this game because in the Wii U version, they introduced a new stage inspired by Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or Mario Kart 8 as it was known for at the time. And it was pretty much just an improved version of this stage. It had more areas to explore, but it still had like the same kind of like theme. It had similar music, and it had the Shy Guy obstacles you had to avoid. So when you compare it to this stage, it just feels very boring in comparison, because it's just the same thing over and over. You just got to watch out for the Shy Guys. And I kind of like the more journey aspect you get with the new Mario Kart 8 inspired track. So yeah, it's not a bad stage, but for Ultimate's sake, it feels very pointless. I feel like they could have, for instance, in the 3DS version, there was Rainbow Road, and that was a very unique fighting stage. It was really cool to see that turned into, an arena. And so I really feel like they should have remade that stage and brought it in here instead. So having this stage in its place just feels kind of frustrating. Number 11, Norfair. While I do think this stage does have a pretty unique design with all the lava and rocks and stuff like that, I think it's just a very frustrating obstacle stage. Now, I personally don't mind gimmicky or obstacle stages. I think those can be very fun every once in a while, but the problem is that a lot of the other ones, they give you a hint or a heads up on when one is about to come. So this one, a lot of it comes so fast, and there's really no easy way to avoid it, whether it's the giant waving flames or the giant waves that come in that you have to take shelter for, and it just becomes a very pesky level after a while. I mean, I can definitely see it being fun for some people, like mainly for multiplayer, but for those who are trying to play too competitively, whether single player or online, this is not a very fun stage to play through. Number 10, Pokemon Stadium 2. Now, Pokemon Stadium is a very fun and classic stage from Super Smash Bros. Melee, but for some reason in Brawl, they decided to make a lazy clone stage of it called Stadium 2. It's almost the exact same stage. A few tweaked graphics here and there, but the new gimmicks and obstacles they added are pretty annoying. I thought the gimmicks in Stadium 1 were pretty fun. The transformations from like a water theme, a fire theme, a ground theme, and so on. So here it's like they just decided to add 4 different gimmicks, and a lot of them are just really... like, they really make the matches last too long, and especially the air theme where you're just floating in air. The treadmill one can be kind of annoying. Now, the ice theme can be pretty harmless, but overall, I just question, why does this stage exist? Wouldn't it have been easier to just upgrade Pokemon Stadium 1 to include more transformations? And that's what really bugs me. I think it would have worked better if Stadium was just a stage with multiple transformation sequences instead of just dividing them into 4 across 2 different stages. It just feels very pointless. That, and I feel like its presence in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is very wasted, considering how there's a pretty popular Pokemon stage that some people wanted in this game, Poke Floats from Melee, and it feels like they chose this stage over that, which is pretty annoying. Honestly, they should have just kind of did like what they did with Flat Zone. Instead of including every single version of Flat Zone, they should have just, instead of including every version of Pokemon Stadium, they should have did like what they did with Flat Zone and had it where they mixed a whole bunch of the previous entries of it into one stage. I don't get why they didn't do that for this. I mean, it's not a bad stage, but at the same time, it feels incredibly pointless. Number 9, Village from Animal Crossing. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad stage, but once again, it's another stage that feels very pointless. For one, it's another stage that feels incredibly inspired by Battlefield, which is pretty underwhelming coming for an Animal Crossing stage. I mean, especially with how detailed the background looks in this, honestly, it makes me wish we were fighting down there instead of up here in the middle of a lonely, physics-breaking island. And it's another Battlefield clone, very uninspired, I don't know. But what makes it so pointless in this is how there's a new stage in this game. Like, this was a recycled stage from Brawl, but they made a better version of this stage in the Wii U version called Town/City, and it was inspired by the game Animal Crossing City Folk. So not only did you travel through the town, but you also occasionally traveled to the city setting. So it had more to see in the background, and I don't know. I just feel like I question why did they include both of these stages? They're just really underwhelming. Now, honestly, the 3DS version of Super Smash Bros. Had a much better Animal Crossing stage, in my opinion, inspired by Tortimer Island. And that's kind of like what I was wanting more from an Animal Crossing stage, one that feels more down to the world of the game and not so high above the world of the game. Personally, those are some of my least favorite stages in Super Smash Bros. I hate the ones where you're just on floating generic platforms, where there's gorgeous scenery in the background that you wish you were fighting on instead. Does anyone else feel the same way? I feel like I'm the only one for some reason. Number 8, Moray Towers. Out of all the stages they could have picked for Splatoon, why did they pick such a boring looking design? Honestly, I feel like they should have went with Inkopolis or some kind of Splatfest inspired stage. Instead, they just chose like this generic looking city design, and you're on top of all this just boring looking tower of skinny looking platforms. It's just not a very exciting stage they could have picked for something like Splatoon. They could have, it would have also been kind of fun if they had more stuff going in the background, like you actually saw like a warfare of Inklings fighting each other. Occasionally you get attacked by some of their bombs and weapons. Like, that would have been a fun idea for a stage. Instead, we just got this, and I don't know, it's just not the kind of stage I was hoping for when it came to getting a Splatoon-inspired stage. Number 7, Peach's Castle 64. Just why? Why did they bring the stage back? I don't really know anyone who actually likes the stage. I mean, we got the better Peach's Castle right here, the one from Melee. So why does this one exist? It's barely Peach's Castle. Yeah, you just see a flat little image of it in the background. Other than that, the main platform is just so boring, and it's just really annoying how it always generates with like a randomly placed bumper at the top. I don't know, I just feel like out of all the Mario stages, this is just one of the blandest designs they could have picked. Now, usually the Mario stages in Smash Bros. Games can be very fun. They can have a lot of variety, but this is it's just too small and too forgettable. Not a fan. Number 6, New Pork City. Now, personally, I don't mind a lot of the really big levels. I know a lot of people seem to really hate them. Personally, I love a lot of them as long as you're not doing it in, like, 8-player Smash. I mean, they can be pretty fun for, like, 2-player stages when the camera isn't so far zoomed out. But the more players there are scattered across the stage, the more difficult those stages get. But New Pork City is one I never cared for. I just think the design of it is just too cluttered, and it just doesn't stand out. Too many of the colors just blend in too well, and it can be really hard to find your character in this stage. I mean, some of the other stages, while they are big and easy to get lost in, at least like they're bright and colorful enough to where other characters won't get lost in the background as easily as a dark stage like this. And I just don't really see any inspiration here. It's just a bunch of boring platforms and Pendulum and an evil Chimera that occasionally comes out. That's it. Now, the other big stages, they have more going for it. Temple has more interesting designs and, like castle scenery. It has, like, the little underground tunnel. It has a lot of fun things for multiplayer. Like, I still have fond memories of, like, chasing around opponents in that stage. And then there's Palutena's Temple. There's just all these crazy death traps and spikes and ricochet walls. And although a lot of people hate the Kirby Great Cave Offensive level, I think that one's really fun, actually. It's got enough scenery here and there. There's a lot of funny and fun obstacles, like the minecarts, the cannons, the lava, the spikes. I just think there's a lot going for it. Here, there's just nothing. It's just such a boring, empty, big level. Number 5, Wileys Castle from Mega Man 2. Now, out of all the stages for Mega Man, why did they choose another Battlefield clone? I mean, this one has a few more gimmicks going for it, but that's what makes the stage more annoying. It's Battlefield with frustrating gimmicks. Now you have like all these weird platforms occasionally popping up, all these weird gears, but the most annoying part of this level, without a doubt, is the Yellow Devil himself. It's just such a pesky obstacle that really interferes with a lot of bosses. Now, I don't mind, like, there being obstacles that, appear out of nowhere and attack some of the players, but when they're so overpowered and they just linger throughout the stage for so long. That's where it gets really annoying. And this level just feels like another tease. So this level's called Wileys Castle, yet we're just on like a platform that's miles away from the actual castle. Why aren't we fighting on or in or at the actual castle? It's just really frustrating. So yeah, not a huge fan of this level. I feel like Mega Man deserved a much better stage to represent his series. Number 4, Flat Zone X. Now, this stage is an interesting concept, but it's just very frustrating in execution. Now, I like the original Flat Zone level from Melee. I thought it was a fun little gimmicky stage where all the characters were flat and trapped inside a handheld console. It was a very unique stage, but now it lost its charm because there are so many stages that tried replicating that. I mean, we have a Kirby stage where it takes you through recreations, it takes you through like the stages of the original Kirby game on Game Boy while looking like you're trapped inside an actual Game Boy. That was a fun little stage. But here, some of the gimmicks here are just really frustrating, especially the one right here where you're trapped inside the cage and it's real easy to get knocked around during this part. And then there's the gas station sequence, and it's real easy to get knocked around during that part as well. And this stage wouldn't have been so bad if it weren't for how brutal the knockback on getting hit by all these obstacles are. Because, I mean, darn it, a lot of these segments are really fun. I do like the fireman scene right here. I like the chef scene. I mean, they're really fun little set pieces for a stage, but at the same time, some of the obstacles just really ruin what could have been a really fun level. Remember when it was just as simple as dodging falling slow wrenches in Melee? Yeah, where did that go? Number 3, Garplane from Xenoblade Chronicles. I mean, talk about a total letdown. Now, when people think Xenoblade Chronicles, whether it's Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, or even X, a lot of people usually think gorgeous scenery, big open fields of grass and bizarre plant lives and landscapes. And we get such a tease of that in the background here, but then you're just too busy staring at this ugly foreground of flat, fake-looking platforms, this big, narrow, gaping maw in the middle of the stage. It's just such an ugly stage of what could have been a beautiful stage. It's such wasted potential. I mean, the only interesting thing that really happens in the stage is when occasionally Metalhead, or whatever his name was from the first Xenoblade Chronicles, shows up and starts attacking. It makes for a little interesting change of pace for this level. Other than that, though, it just does not make up for such an ugly-looking stage for what should have been a beautiful-looking stage. Number 2, 75mm from Donkey Kong Arcade. Now, making a stage out of Donkey Kong Arcade was a no-brainer. It was a great idea. A lot of people were hoping they would have made 25mm into a stage. The first level from that game. Just, run up the ramps, climb up the ladders, dodge the barrels, or heck, even the final stage would have worked. But seriously, they chose the most frustrating stage out of the whole experience. Nobody likes this stage from Donkey Kong Arcade, and it's made even more frustrating in Smash Brothers. Now, you're welcome. I didn't bother actually recording footage from the actual game, the actual level of this. It's very frustrating. I just chose to play on the Final Destination version of the stage, which is the only enjoyable way to play that stage, in my opinion. But yeah, it's still a shame that what could have or should have been for a Donkey Kong stage, this is what we got. A very frustrating mess of bouncing springs and a very annoying Donkey Kong NPC that can just knock you out with one hit. It's just too narrow and way too hard to play when too much is going on at once. Not a fun stage at all. And finally, the absolute worst Super Smash Bros. Ultimate stage, in my opinion, is Hannonbow, Electroplankton stage. Now, this was just such a frustrating stage. I still have very haunting memories of when I first played this stage in Super Smash Bros. Brawl and how constantly I died because of how misleading this stage is. Now, when I first saw the thumbnail for the stage, I thought this looked really cool. It looked really colorful, really bizarre. But then when I got into the stage and, the first thing I tried doing was hopping over. Well, I was just like, wait, where are the platforms? I didn't realize all these things in the background were the platforms. all these weird looking leaves. And so then I tried hopping over to that orange branch thing over to the left, and guess what happened? I fell through and died. That wasn't a platform at all. I mean, what the heck? That thing clearly looks like a platform, and the setup and geometry of this level is just so confusing. It just makes no sense. It's such a shame, too. It could have made for a really interesting stage with all the bizarre, and surreal sounds and visuals, the hopping little plankton. It could have made for an interesting stage, but the way it was set up is just so... ugh. Honestly, this isn't even as much fun to play as even in Final Destination form. It's still a very boring level. So, yeah. What do you guys think? What are your least favorite stages in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.